We are about a minute out. I just want to say hello to those entering the room. Hello, Nafi. Hello, Ms. Murphy. And Mr. Scott, hello there. Ms. Williams, hello, hello. Good day and aloha. Excellent. So glad y'all could make it today. We're at 1 o'clock. Jesse, should we get started?
Yes, ma'am, we shall. Again, good afternoon, everybody, and happy Tuesday. I hope you're feeling wonderful today. My name is Jesse McIntyre, and I'm your technical producer for today's event. And before I turn it over, I do have a couple of housekeeping items I would like to go over with everybody before we begin. So first, please note your microphones are muted by default, as I said, and they will stay that way for the remainder and duration of today's event. Also, live captioning is enabled for everybody in Zoom. To activate that, all you do is locate the CC button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Go ahead and click on that and select Show Subtitle. That will give you live captionings for today's event. In addition, if you have any need for assistance during the event, please feel free to reach out to me in the Zoom chat feature that's located in the lower center of your screen. Go ahead and type in my name and start typing away, and I will help you out as best I can. And finally, we do have a survey that we ask that you take at the end of today's session, and Ms. Shaughnessy will go over that at the closeout of today's session. So now, without further ado, I would like to turn the floor over to our Master Facilitator and Learning Management Officer, Ms. Moira Shaughnessy, for today's session in Seeds. Moira, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jesse, and hello, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today to talk about DISC. Before I begin, I just want to remind everyone that all of our sessions, all of our seed sessions are recorded. You can find the PDF of the slides. You can find handouts on the Seeds SharePoint site, and Jesse's going to share that link with you all. So feel free to go to that SharePoint site for information about past events, future events, and the recording. So with that, I am going to dive right in. I love teaching DISC. I've been teaching this class now for about 7 years or so. I think it's just the most phenomenal tool for building emotional intelligence, for helping teams collaborate better, communicate more effectively. So I'm so glad that you're here today. This slide, you don't get harmony when everyone sings the same note. So why DISC? Because it helps us appreciate differences. So studies, research tell us that we all have this unconscious bias towards people who are like us, and that includes personality styles. If we're a very direct, no-nonsense kind of person, we want others to be that way. If we're very social and people-oriented, we tend to appreciate those who are like that. We're empaths and feelers. We want other people to be more sensitive. If we're more logical and analytical, we appreciate those people on our team who exhibit those qualities. The thing is, we need a diversity of personality styles on our teams to be able to function really well. We need each personality style. We need to appreciate, understand, and celebrate each personality style so that our teams get more cohesive. This is more important than ever because we've been doing so much hiring in VBA. New teams are coming together, and when new teams come together, people who don't know each other, of course, they kind of step on each other's toes a bit, right? And we need to know not to take that personally and not to get judgy, but to get open and curious about the people who are around us. When we know DISC theory, it helps us do that. It helps us get less judgy and more open and more curious about the people on our teams. We need all the styles. You don't get harmony when everyone sings the same note. So let's go over our objectives for today. We just have 50 minutes. You would be surprised. You're going to meet all these objectives at the end of these 50 minutes. And I know it sounds like a big task, but I know you're up for it. At the end of this training, you'll be able to know what your own DISC score means. The DISC survey went out in that flyer. There's a link to it. If you didn't have time to take it, it's okay. By the end of this training, you're going to have an instinctual knowledge of what your DISC score is. You're also going to be able to recognize the DISC styles of the people you work with. That social awareness. When you know DISC, you start being able to read others more effectively. You'll be able to build on your strengths while managing your unproductive habits. We're going to talk about what's kind of edgy for us. What are some of those unproductive habits we have according to our style? We'll talk about that. You'll be able to address that. And then in all, we are really here to be able to build empathy and build cohesive teams and collaborate more powerfully with each other, because we all want to accomplish more than what we can do on our own, right? So what is DISC? It's other folks have you might have heard of Myers-Briggs. That's more about what your psychological style is. DISC is really about describing noticeable behavior patterns. It describes behavior types, communication styles. It's really based on observable behaviors. So sometimes people say to me, oh, my DISC score, that's a private thing. Trust me, people know, because DISC is all about what people can see and notice, whether or not we know they can or not. It's because of this, it's really geared for work more than some of those other assessments you might have seen. I also want you to know that DISC is not about skills. So you may see a description of a style and say, yeah, that used to be me, but I don't do that anymore because I learned. I believe you. And DISC does not tell us so much about what you've learned. It tells us about what you prefer. It tells us about kind of your knee-jerk reaction in particular situations. You may know when you get into a group not to behave like that, but somewhere within you, when you look at your score, will tell you what your preference is, not your skill, what your preference is. For this reason, there is no good or bad DISC score. Every score that I have seen is indicative of a real strength that someone brings to the team. And it's also indicative of what's kind of edgy for you and what you might want to develop as you move forward. And we're going to talk about that. So how long has this DISC thing been around? The father of analytical psychology, Carl Jung, his work out of the 1920s, people started thinking about patterns in the way people show up, kind of archetypes. And at that point, we started thinking about how like similarities across personality styles is when we first started thinking about that back in the 1920s. Now, in the late 20s, William Marston came up with the DISC theory. Strangely enough, he also is the inventor of the polygraph and Wonder Woman. How random is that? But he's the first one who came up with the 4 different styles. Now, in the 1940s, a man named Dr. Clark came, and he, based on William Marston's theory, he came up with an assessment, a DISC assessment. So that's been around since the 40s. Army started using it in the 1950s, and then in the 1990s, they updated it. And it's more geared now, more specialized now that we can use in the workplace. So I got to tell you, it's really well respected, and the validity and the reliability of DISC has been proven again and again. So yeah, really helpful tool. And we use it across VBA. We use it in all our leadership development programs. So I'm thrilled that you'll be able to speak DISC language by the end of this training. So DISC stands for dominance, influence, conscientiousness, and steadiness. So when you look at your DISC score, whatever is the highest score that you have there, that is indicative of your style. So for example, if you have a high dominance D style, you might have a score like 51D. That means you are a high D. And then you have a secondary, you have another score, that's the second highest, your secondary score. So we would say that score is a C. We would say you are a high D, secondary C, right? And it's that blend that will tell us about your preferences, what motivates you, what irritates you. So you want to look for your highest score and your second highest score. So we're going to talk about high Ds, high Is, high Cs, and high S's, and get a sense of these 4 personality styles. So you kind of have a snapshot right now in front of you. And we're going to talk some in depth for the next hour about what each of these styles is like in the workplace. But just so you know, right off the bat, D stands for dominance. It is a score that measures how direct do you like to be. How much do you kind of come across as an alpha? How much do you enjoy being in charge of things? I for influence is a measure of how much do you like being that social butterfly? How extroverted do you appear? Not necessarily whether or not you identify as an extrovert or introvert. How much do you appear to be extroverted in a social environment like work? C stands for conscientiousness. Sometimes you'll see it stand for compliance as well. And that's a measure of how detail-oriented are you? How conscientious are you? How much do you appreciate and rely on logic and analysis to make decisions? S stands for steadiness. I've also seen it called supportiveness before. You'll see it both. Nobody owns DISC. So you'll see sometimes the letters stand for different things. And it's a measure of, how even-tempered are you? How much of a team player do you like to be? If you know someone who seems to be very quiet, insightful, chances are they're a high S, but we're going to go into that some more. Thank you for sharing your DISC scores. I love to see those. What we see here from this wonderful person, and maybe St. Pete, this person is a high S, high I, high steadiness, high influence. Really great example. Thank you. Okay, Jesse, thanks. We'll go on to the next one. So we're talking about DISC today, but we're also talking about DISC through the lens of emotional intelligence. So why are we still talking about emotional intelligence when that book came out 20 years ago? Why does this keep coming up? Because he's all sorts of evidence out there that indicates that high performance is really highly correlated with emotional intelligence, so much so that if you are to go out in private industry and your emotional intelligence scores goes up by 1 point, you'll probably see a raise in salary by about $1,300. It's high performers tend to be high in emotional intelligence. Powerful leaders tend to be high in emotional intelligence. It's really important, yet nobody knows, from what I can see, how to increase your emotional intelligence. How do you do that? One way you can do that is by understanding DISC. So today I am telling you, you will leave this training when you understand DISC with greater self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and relationship management. Those are the elements of emotional intelligence. When you know DISC, your emotional intelligence goes up. Next slide, please, Jesse. And I don't want you to think emotional intelligence is like, being a people person. Not at all. That is not what emotional intelligence is. It's a blend of personal competence and social competence. So personal competence, that's self-awareness. So when you have self-awareness, that's when you're sitting in on a meeting and your voice is being raised. And when your voice starts getting loud, I'm getting irritated and I need to calm my nervous system down. I'm doing that thing I always do. Another example, self-awareness. Oh, I'm in a meeting and I'm not saying anything once again. I'm doing that thing I do where I kind of disappear when I get a little nervous. I'm doing that thing I like to do. I'm procrastinating. Whatever any of our, or I'm doing that thing where I am giving a lot of energy to this group. This is self-awareness, and you have to know these things about yourself so that you have a choice on how you want to behave in a certain environment. And you might think, of course I have a choice. I always have a choice. You would be surprised how much behavior is habitual. So when you have self-awareness, you now have a choice. I know when I go into, when I'm at the party with my aunt so-and-so, and she talks about politics, I know my blood pressure is going to go up and I might get a little direct. So now that you know that, you have a choice. Right? If you're not aware of that, you're just, once again, you leave that family party thing. Why did I get into that with Aunt Janet? Why do I do it all the time? We need self-awareness so we can choose what we do in difficult situations. That's called self-management. Self-management is really about impulse control. It's about, knowing that self-awareness, you talk a lot. Self-management is, okay, knowing that I talk a lot, I'm going to sit back in this meeting and let others shine. That's self-management. You don't let your emotions get the best of you. You don't let your impulses get the best of you. You sit back and you regulate yourself. If you have goals that you need to achieve and they're not achieved yet, you want to look at self-management, because chances are you're letting your emotions get the best of you. Social awareness is being able to read the room, knowing what do people need for me to be at their need for me so that they can be at their best. Is there tension in the room? Is this person agreeing with me? Are they not? Is it time for me to speak? Is it time for me to listen based on the cues I'm getting? That's social awareness, very important. And relationship management is putting it all together to build influence, trust, and empathy. So I am here to tell you, we can increase each of these things with DISC. Right now, we're going to work on increasing our self-awareness. I want you to understand and thank you all for putting your triggers. Thank you. Putting your DISC scores here. Oh, thank you for that. So what does that mean? Let's work on self-awareness. Let's watch this video. And I want you to see yourself in this video. Okay, go ahead, Jesse. Thank you.
People are different. People are different, but they are predictably different. Do you believe that people are different? How many of you guys believe that people are different? Yes, of course, people are all different. How many of you believe that we can predict how someone will act or react in a given environment? Let me show you how we do that. In the general population, there are 4 types of people, and we call them dominant, or the D style, influencing, or the I style, stable or steady, which is the S style, and then the C style is the compliant style. And those are the people that make up our world. And you see those people all the time. You see those people all the time. If you've ever walked up to an elevator and saw the guy that presses the button and then steps back and looks at the button again, and then he presses it, and then he taps it or holds it, because he thinks that as he presses that, the elevator must surely arrive faster. That is the D personality style. Dominant, direct, they're drivers. They want to control their environment. They want to do something to make something happen in their world. And so they will keep their thumb on that button until the elevator comes. Now, once the doors open and everyone walks in and they close, the one guy that turns around and starts talking to people, the guy that's smiling because once the doors close, he knows he has a captive audience, that is the I personality style. They're the influencers. They're the ones when the door opens, he goes, boom, 3rd floor, lingerie, enjoy your day. Those are the I's. Now the S personality style, they're stable, steady. They're very relational. They are people. Now, they're the people that if the door's starting to close, but there's somebody that may or may not be wanting to get on the elevator, they'll stick their hand out. There's plenty of room. Come on in. Come on in. Now, the D is back there going, oh, come on, man. I gotta go. Like, why are you waiting? And the S is holding the door open. And if there's too many people, they'll say, you know what, I'll just take the stairs. They'll get out, let somebody else go. You go on. It's okay. That's that S personality style. Very stable, steady. Now, the C's. The C personality style is the guy that's very quiet, off to the side, and he's standing there looking at the plaque that says maximum weight, 3,700 pounds. And he's calculating body weight. He's going, if one person gets on, I'm off. Like that's the guy. He's the guy that notices when the inspection date is due on the elevator. So those are the four personality styles. Now, D's make up about 3% of the population. 3%. Do you know why? Because any more than 3% and we would be at war all the time. So God in his wisdom said, we need those D's, we need those drivers, but let's keep them down to about 3% of the population. I's are about 11% of the population. And I's are fun to have around, but any more than 11% of the population, we would never get anything done. S's make up 69% of the population. They are the majority of people that you're going to be dealing with. Very stable, steady. Another S word for you, status quo. They like things the way things are right now. They make up 69% of the population. C's, what percent of the population would C's be? Okay, the person that said 17%, that person's a C. Do you know why? Because they did the math. They added it up and subtracted from it, but oh, 17. So there's the C. That's the C style. That's the C personality style. But it's important to know these personality styles. It's important to know, first of all, for you, what blend of those styles, because those blends are all in us. Any one of us can be any one of those styles. How many of you believe that your personality style can change based on your environment? Yeah, that's right. You know what? Your car is your environment. And so people who are very easygoing, very stable, steady, laid back, sometimes they get behind the wheel, they turn into a D. And then as soon as they lock the door, doot, doot, they're back to their, hi, how's everything? And so you see these people change their styles in the car. When you start to merge, the guy that gets in front or won't let you through, that's the D. That's the D style. He will take a dent before he lets you in front of him. He's like, I'll take the dent. You will, no. That's the D personality style. Now the I is the guy that's trying to get in because he didn't realize that they were merging. Do you know why? Because he's talking and, he's singing a song. He's looking, he's like, hey, that was a good song. Last time I was down here, I remember there's a great radio. Oh, darn, I got to merge. That's the I. And he's waving. Hey, can I come in? Hey, can I come in? Hey, can I come in? Now the S personality style, they're the people that eventually will let you in. They're like, this isn't right, but look at that guy. He's obviously from out of town. All right, I'll let you in. Now that percentage of people probably goes down as construction goes up. Now the C's are rarely in that situation. You know why? Because those are the people that have planned their route. Well, you have to leave a half hour early because you're going to want to make sure you do that. So those are the personality styles. So people are different. They are predictably different.
I see people identifying with that video, I think. I suspect that is what's going on. Oh, and I love that you're sharing your scores up there. What you'll notice when you look at some of these scores here, you will see that the stats they shared in that video don't seem very accurate, do they? I don't know where he got those stats. When he said like 3% of the population being D, here in BBA, if you look, like this is a really great representation that we have in the chat box. Not true. We have a lot of high Ds in BBA, don't we? A lot of high Ds. Yeah. Let's talk about what that means. Let's do a bit of a deeper dive here into what each of these, what each of these styles means. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about for each style. And I want you to see yourself in this. We're working on self-awareness. We're going to talk about with each style, what your strengths are, your core brilliance, right? We're also going to talk about what's edgy for each style. And this is really important because I once had someone tell me we should not, if you're an artist, you don't paint with 3 colors. If you're a musician, you don't play with just 1 or 2 chords, right? You want to use the whole piano. So we want to use all the skills that we can possibly use. We don't want to just rely on our strengths. We want to kind of exercise those unused muscles some more. For example, I once had someone who was a very high D said, I wish I had heard that before. I once, as a leader, I had someone come into my office and they burst into tears. And I'm a high D, hard, charging, driven person, not emotional at all. That made me nervous. I left to go find her help. I got back and she was gone. She ended up leaving VA a few months later. And he said that, I had always wished I kind of developed the more empathic, feeling-oriented side of myself before I became a leader, because that's something I had to learn after. I wished I had worked on what was really edgy for me. It's an important thing, right? We all want to develop ourselves, of course, rely on our strengths, but also understand, become knowledgeable of, and work on our challenges as well. So we're going to talk about your brilliance, what's edgy. We're going to talk about the noble story of each type. So often when someone doesn't behave the way we want them to behave, we get a little judgy about that and say, oh, well, maybe maybe they just don't care about me or about the group, or maybe they're just, the terrible person or whatever. Not true. Everyone has a noble story. Everyone has something that drives them. They're working at something. And instead of being judgy when we see some of these behaviors, my hope is that after you really understand DISC, that you'll get curious, a little less judgy, a little more open, and you'll say to yourself, that's just how they're wired. They're a high D. That way you don't have to take things so personally. And that way you can really appreciate where that person's coming from, which is and it builds trust, and it's so essential on a team. We're also going to talk about the shadow sides of each of these styles. The shadow side of our personality comes out when you need two things. You need to be probably stressed, and stress can come from you have too much to do or even not enough to do. Some sort of stress. You're not comfortable and you're not managing that stress very well. Our shadow sides tend to come out, and they tend to be a little messy. And when you can see the shadow side of a style, you can have a little bit more compassion, a little bit more empathy, like, I get it. That's just the shadow side, and they're probably really stressed, rather than judging them harshly, right? So let's begin with D. You see the mascot there being the eagle. The D is kind of like the archetypal leader. They really prefer to be in charge. Their strengths, their brilliance is they tend to see the big picture, right? They don't get lost in the details like some of us. They don't get lost in the drama that some of us get to. They have their eye on the prize. They know where the finish line is, and they are committed to getting everyone across that finish line. They are committed to herding the cats, and they're good at it. Those are those high Ds. They're great at providing clarity and direction. So when you're like, oh my gosh, all the things that I'm thinking of, and these will be like, here's the objective. Here's the next step to getting to that objective. They tend to be very driven, very goal-oriented. And that's why, powerful teams, they need that high D on there for that reason, to, direct everybody's eyes on the prize. Now, it's edgy for a D. So I've been running leadership development programs here at VBA for some years now. And when I work with people in their leadership journeys, and the leadership journey of a high D involves this, becoming a little bit more comfortable with vulnerability. High Ds do not like that. Showing empathy, not an easy thing for a high D to do. When I talk to them about that, they say, Mara, if I show empathy and I open the conversation up, we'll be there for an hour. And that's really scary for a high D, because a high D really wants to get stuff done. So they don't want to take time away. Their noble story is, I get a lot of stuff done. So if they have to slow down and really listen, show empathy, maybe even admit they don't have all the answers, that they might not reach their goal of getting all the things done. So in the leadership development of a D, and we're all leaders, just to be clear, in our own development, as if we're a high D, vulnerability and empathy essential to develop for those high Ds. Shadow side, if a high D is stressed and they're not managing it well, you might see them get a little insensitive. You might see them get a little impatient. You know, they're looking at their watches or their phones. Come on, let's go, let's go. And that's the shadow side of the D. We don't see it very often. Normally what we see of Ds is bringing all that energy to the task at hand. Let's talk about the I's now. Do me a favor, all you high Ds out there, just give me a thumbs up or write yes or do something. I want to know how many high Ds we have in our audience right now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All those we got. Look at that. How many high Ds do we have in VBA? Not 3%. Say a good half. Oh, beautiful. That's why we get so much done here in VBA. Look at those high Ds. Welcome, welcome. All right, let's talk about high I's now. Beautiful. Keep adding, you high Ds. What we rely on those high I's for is bringing energy, enthusiasm into the group. They are the kind of charismatic ones. They appear to be very extroverted. They're the ones in the office birthday party. It's really awkward and nobody knows like who's going to speak first, or in that meeting when nobody's talking, the I's will always be there like, I'll take one for the team. Okay. And they'll get things started, right? They're great at networking. They're the ones to reach out of the stovepipes that can develop here in VBA and reach across when it comes time to solve a problem. They'll be like, hey, you know what? I know somebody over there. Let me just go talk to them and we'll get this all figured out. It's what we rely on the high I's for. They can be very inspiring and more likely to be like creative. They want to brainstorm. They don't want to do the same thing again and again and again. They want to bring new energy, new ideas into a situation, and it's very important for high I's to be able to express. So you see that mascot there for that high I being a parrot. And when you think about maybe positions that a high I would be drawn to, perhaps a trainer, a teacher, a salesperson, actor, actress, you know, you want to think charisma and someone who doesn't mind kind of being in the spotlight, because again, they appear to be more extroverted. Now, what I's are always working on, what's edgy for I's is getting focused and getting serious. Okay, so really focusing in on polishing content, content over flash. Sometimes high I's can rely on their charisma a little too much, and you want to make sure all the time, if you're a high I, do your homework, cross the T's, dot the I's. It's the mantra for the high I, cross the T's, dot the I's, because we can appear to be a little all over the place, a little messy. We can't help it. We're wired like that, so we have to continue to commit to working right up, walking right up to our edge and working on these things. Listening, especially if you're a high D as well as a high I, you're going to focus on expression. You're probably not going to focus on listening, on receiving. And that's kind of edgy for a high I, to sit back in a meeting, not say anything, just listen. As a leader who's a high I leaders really want to give information. I can assure you that employees really just want high I's to listen more, right? Yeah. Shadow side, so the noble story of the I, what they really want to bring is like, they want to motivate, inspire, bring people together. Now the shadow side of the high I, when they're stressed, disorganization. You know, they can lead too much with their impulsivity. And that's the shadow side, and that's the work of the high I, is to address that shadow side when they get stressed. Believe and trust, but verify. Interesting, Susan. Thank you for that. Are we talking about high I's here? So high I's, you're saying maybe high I's were like, yeah, good enough, let's trust. And they don't bother to step back and verify, but high I's need to verify. They need to do that extra work. Yeah. All right, those are those high I's. Do me a favor, please. I have found in VBA, we don't have a whole lot of high I's. It's usually the smallest representation in the groups. can you please, and high eyes don't mind raising their hands, give me a thumbs up, say yes, do something in the chat. Let me know if you're a high eye. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Denise. Thanks, Anne. Lindsay. Yep. We have more high eyes than I thought. High eye here. Yes, ma'am. All right. Welcome, high eyes. Bring a lot to your teams. Now, high S's. Yeah, we're going to talk about some of these blends and mixes. High S's. I tell you, in my leadership programs, when I put people on teams, I always make sure I put an S on that team, because what S's do so well is they monitor team dynamics. They are, they're intuitive, they're insightful. They really tune into people. That's the high S coming out. When I go and I train and with a live audience, it's always the S's who come up to me and say, do you know where the restroom is? Do you have water? Do you want coffee? Can I do anything for you? They're caretaker. They come across as caretakers, a lot of warmth. They're peacemakers. Peace is very important. If you have a lot of conflict on your team, maybe a D or a C may not care so much about that. The S is getting stressed out because, they feel that conflict on a team that goes through them. It's really tough. Their strength is intuitive, insightful. They tend to be really good listeners. So if you know someone and they tend to be very quiet, but kind of insightful, chances are you're talking to a high S there. Now, high S's, who, thank you for adding the high S's, thank you. In your development, personal, professional, leadership development, if you're a high S, chances are somewhere in your development, you're going to need to walk up to your edge and embrace these things. Being able to say no, being able to set boundaries, being able to raise your hand and be seen and be heard. S's don't like that. They want to be in the background, right? Embracing conflict. Often high S's will disappear when conflict arises because it affects them. So it really affects them, right? And they don't want that. It stresses them out. I have to have conversations all the time with S's and say, please go into leadership. Your interpersonal skills are amazing. You're smart, you're capable. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable, leading the group. It's like, oh, you bring so much to your team if you went into leadership. So I always have to have that conversation with the high S's, like, come on, go into leadership, you can do it. So the noble story of the S, what drives them is they really want to take care of people. So whenever you kind of do anything that gets in the way of somebody's noble story, whether that is to get something done, to express, or to take care of people, and you get in the way and don't let them kind of take action on what drives them, you stress them out. So if you want to stress a high S out, go do something that disturbs the team and gets the team all riled up. That's going to stress out your high S, because their noble story is I take care of everybody and make sure everybody's okay. That's what I do as a high S. That's their noble story. Now their shadow side, if they do get stressed and they have a hard time managing that stress, they tend to be a little bit of a people pleaser, lacking boundaries, not able to say no. In the development of a high S, that's what they're working on there. So true. So I'm seeing some high S's out there like, oh, are we going to talk about that now? Do we have to talk about that now? Yeah, we got to talk about the fact that you want to take care of everybody, fix everything for everybody. High D's want to do that too. You're taking on too much. It's a hard thing to say no. It's a hard thing to upset other people, isn't it? I know. Yeah, counselor by trade. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Counselor is counselor, coach, high S kind of professions. Nurses often, if you combine that with a C, very detail oriented, it would be a nurse profession. Anybody who's in the realm of being a peacemaker, who wants to soothe and take care of, and they're kind of, and their gentleness has a place in that environment. S's want to be there. Teachers, honestly, I have seen teachers are people, right? And what S's and I's have in common is they're both people. They both are very committed to being in service to people rather than tasks. So teachers are in service to being to people, although teachers like to stand up in front of a room and communicate. S's don't want to stand up in front of a room. S's have a hard time speaking up in meetings and don't really like being noticed very much. So that's the difference, but you're picking up on that people aspect. I like that. Mental health counselor, middle child. Yes, yes, yes. Zen is an S, and then unleash the D. And they don't see it coming, do they? Yeah. Textbook S, says Angela. We got a lot of S's in the house. Go ahead. Raise your hand proudly. Let us know. Be proud, high S's. And high S's are like, I don't really want to raise my hand. I don't really feel like it. Here I am, says Wailita and Nafi and Torrance. Thank you, Charlene. We need S's on our teams. We need S's on our teams. All right. Now, C's. What we rely on you C's for is how logical and analytical you are. No nonsense, right to the point. They also want to get things done like D's. They're task oriented like the D's, but they don't want to go out front. They want to stay behind and give you all the data you need to go do what you need to do. Right? These are the mathematicians. They're the finance people. They're the IT people. Yeah. Finance, IT, yeah, math, yeah, engineers, that kind of thing. They tend to be more detail oriented, more conscientious in general. So our quality people here in VBA, they're really sticklers for quality. They get down and really comfortable getting down into the weeds. That, yeah, we're talking probably C's in there, and C's, we rely on you for that. Now, I always have to talk about C's, 5%. You got a 5% on C, then what I just described, probably not loving the details, you low C's, right? That's okay, but you want to empower those who are high C's because they've got your back, right? So in a leadership development, personal, professional development, leadership development, we got to address what's edgy for us. For those C's, letting go of perfection, tough thing to do when you're C. High S's have this kind of same thing as well, kind of perfectionistic there. And sometimes, in our professional development, we need to move forward, even though we're not 100% sure. We need to need forward, even though we don't have, 100% perfection in our products, but we need to move things forward. And that's really stressful for a high C. You know what else is stressful for a high C? Change. Putting a high C in a new situation, like PACT Act, who knows? We haven't done this before. That's really stressful for a high C. High I's and D's will be like, oh, great, something new. We don't need to dive into those details. High C's and S's are like, oh my gosh, this is so stressful. I don't have all the answers. What am I going to do? I haven't seen this before. I don't have the binder. It's very stressful for a high C. Asking for help is hard because high C's really prefer to work alone. Connecting with teammates, it's part of their journey, their professional journey, and they think, oh, why does that matter? It matters. It matters to be able to connect with your teammates. I could have a whole class and talk about the importance of a cohesive team. We need you high C's, and we want to hear you, and we want more of you on our teams. The noble story of the high C is I give information and I introduce logic. So if your team is in a lot of conflict and there's a lot of drama, that high C is like, I don't understand this. I mean, clearly we have all the information. We have all the data. Why are people upset? The data is telling us what to do. What's all the drama about? Right? Because the C's noble story is, look, I'm here to provide data and information. and to tell you how to do like the thing, right? The shadow side of the C, if they're stressed, they might get critical, they might get perfectionistic, okay? This isn't, high C's might be, well, I'm going to dismiss this because it's not based on data, but it's people who are using all the data, and people are not logical. We like to think we are, but often we're not. And that can stress out that high C, make them a little bit critical. Come on, be more, be more logical. The cry of the high C. Yeah. All right. So we just talked about strengths and what's kind of edgy. What do you need to work on? So do me a favor right now, take 60 seconds. We're running out of time. So I'm going to take 60 seconds here. What is something edgy? You can see in that bullet, here's the question. Something edgy you want to take on as a practice while you work with your team. If you're a high D, maybe you want to sit back and let somebody else lead an effort. Maybe if you're a high I, you want to practice sitting back and listening more. Maybe if you're a high S, you want to practice boundaries, saying no or raising your hand. Maybe as a high C, you want to be able to move forward even though something's not perfect, whatever that might be for you. Go ahead and do that now, setting boundaries. That's a good one. Good one. So thank you for sharing in the chat. Practicing soft skills, especially if you're a high D, high C, and you're really task-oriented, how you connect and influence people, something you want to work on. Very, very common and a part of everybody's professional journey. Thank you for bringing it up. Learning to network. Yeah, there are some folks who, especially high C's and high S's, networking is like, I'd really rather work alone. Yeah, better at conflict, not knee-jerk responses. Brilliant. Always about self-awareness. We have choice. I'm not going to do the knee-jerk response. I'm going to choose something different this time. That's self-management. Beautiful, beautiful. Talking and understanding about other people's perspectives, how they want to communicate and interact. So well put. Asking for help. Oh my gosh. In our culture, it's all about being independent, and we go it alone way too much. More directive, rely on data. Oh, thank you, guys. Excellent. Okay, we're gonna move on in the interest of time. So, how do you read people? Now you've got your results. How do you know what somebody else's DISC score is if you haven't talked to them? Let's talk about that. People are giving off cues all the time about their personality style. We just need to recognize those cues. So let's talk about some of those cues. Jesse? So in learning how to read people's styles, it's very helpful to know how they're the same and how they're different. So I want to talk about that first. So D's and I's, the way they're similar is they appear in the world to be kind of extroverted. And some people say, if people really knew me, they would know how quiet or extroverted. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about D's and I's appear in the world as extroverted types. They have something in their head, that thing is coming out. They're all about expression, giving information, giving examples, telling stories. They tend to be extroverted. They don't love the details, so they tend to be very fast-paced. Done is better than perfect. Just like get it out, fast-paced. Let's go. Let's get a move on. C's and S's, they have a slower pace because they want to sit back and observe and take in information. They don't want to go out there and give information. They want to receive it. They tend to be much better listeners. So S's want to take in information about people, and C's just want to take in information about their environment, about the data that's in their environment. They tend to look as though they're more introverted. Again, because like they're kind of just sitting back and observing. So sometimes like with C's, I'll go into a live training audience and I won't see any expression at all. And it's because they're very busy. Their brains are busy churning away, trying to take in all this information that you don't know what's going on with them. The S's will be like smiling and nodding, trying to take care of me. You're doing great, Mara. You're doing okay. Keep going. The C's are trying to, take in that information. So slower paced, both of them, they want to sit back. They don't want to raise their hands and get up in front of a group. So if you see someone who's like tends to be very, very quiet, but when they speak up, they kind of have all the information and have all the insight. That means they're either like a high S secondary C or a high C secondary S. They've got that double dose there of being more introverted. Now, if someone's like off the charts, like strong leadership, people person, appear to be very extroverted, they probably have that double dose there. They're probably a DI or an ID, right? Now, I want to tell you what the I's and the S's have in common. Both of them are people, both of them. The I's are more extroverted about it. The S's are more introverted about it, but they both are really concerned about connecting with people. So if you have an IS or SI, people are probably describing you as, oh, so easy to get along with and easy to talk to and people person, right? Yes, says so, Felicia. Are we talking about you right now, Felicia? Yeah, IS, SI, there's a bunch of them here in VBA. Yeah. So DC, CD, what they have in common, task oriented all day long, right? So the DCs are like, mission oriented. Sure, we care about those people, but we got to focus on the mission. The I's and S's are like, of course, mission's so important, but we got to make sure our people are okay. Just both, there's no right or wrong here, which is I'm really hoping you're picking up on. All of these types are essential. It's just, they play different roles on a team. Yeah, mission first or people first. People do the mission, but the mission's first. We're here to serve veterans. Who's serving the veteran? We go back and forth, and it just depends. It depends on who you are, but we need all these perspectives on the team. We need to celebrate these perspectives, appreciate these perspectives. Open up, less judginess towards these different perspectives, right? All right, so let's go to the next one. So again, we're working on social awareness. We're working on trying to read people. And you have these slides are going to be on the SharePoint site. Jesse, if you wouldn't mind sharing the SharePoint site again, so you can go through and read each of these in detail. But how to spot a high C, probably quiet, very very data oriented. High C's are the mathematicians, engineers, data. Next slide, Jesse. I have a quiz for you all. No pressure. All right, here, let me tell you there's 3 C's hiding in this group, okay? And let me tell you who they are. Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Oprah, Kamala Harris, second row. Tom Brady, that's J.K. Rowling. She wrote those amazing Harry Potter books. Mr. Rogers, Dolly Parton. Bill Gates is on the 3rd row there. That's J.Lo, Warren Buffett, and Michael Jordan. So you guys tell me, write it in the chat. Who do you think are the 3 high C's? Really detail oriented, those IT people. Who is it? Warren Buffett. You got it. Yes. Yes. Who else? Buffett. Yes. Bill Gates. Yay. One more. You'd be surprised. I always get that. Here, can you go? Yeah. So all these are leaders in their field. So they're all going to be kind of detail oriented one way or another. But there are some who are the engineers, mathematicians, very data oriented. Go ahead, and detail oriented. Go ahead, and Jesse, and let us know. So the one that you guys did not get is not Kamala Harris, J.K. Rowling. You have to be a high C, high conscientiousness, totally detail oriented. If you wrote 6 volumes like that, creating this very detailed world, J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. Yeah, those books are oh my God, the detail in those books. Amazing. Okay, very true. Thank you for agreeing. my friend. All right. So how to spot a high S. Again, they're soothing. They're quiet. They want to help. They are the peacemakers. Okay. So they're hard to spot because they don't like being in the spotlight. They want to take care of everybody. Who do we have, Jesse? Let's look at our yeah. So you guys put it in the chat. Who do you got for high S? Mother Teresa, the caretaker, Mr. Rogers. Who are the people in your neighborhood? Says Mr. Rogers. So we're thinking, and yeah, so think about more introverted. High S's tend to be more introverts. So yeah, Dolly wants to help everybody. Dolly does not strike me as an introvert. Yeah, Nelson, perfect. Jesse, next slide. Yeah, Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, the peacemakers, the caretakers, Mr. Rogers, you got it. Okay, who do we have now? Now, again, we're working on our social awareness, how to read the room, how to read people, how do you spot a high I in the wild? They talk a lot, very expressive, use their hands a lot. You know, you can see it on their face, very charismatic, can hold space, put a lot of energy in there. Who do we got, Jesse? All right, let's see. Who do we got? Dolly? Yeah. Oprah? Yeah. Oh, you guys already got it. Rock stars. Geez, I thought I was being challenging. Go ahead, Jesse. Who do we got here? Yeah, Oprah. I saw Oprah live. Could have heard a pin drop. I've never in my life seen a more charismatic person. Never have I seen that. J-Lo, she literally is wearing all bling. Yes. Dolly, look at the rhinestones, the sparkle, the charisma, extroverted. You got it. Smarty pants. All right, VBA, you got it. Last, but certainly not least, how in the world do we spot those amazing high Ds out in the wild? They're probably telling us what to do. Thank God, somebody needs to. So, Jordan, yeah, who are these leaders? You know, just very direct. They want to give you information to get all the stuff done. They want to be in service. Who are they? Brady for sure, vice president. Right, you got it. What do we got, Jesse? Yeah, so again, like the high Ds are the archetypal leaders, right? You want to put them in charge of something when you can. If you're a high D, you're probably thinking naturally like, I'm very interested in leadership. I want to go into leadership one day. I have to put a plug in right now just because of where I work. Those of you who are high Ds and very interested in leadership, the Leadership Development Directorate of Human Capital Services soon, within the next month or two, will be opening our doors. And where our leadership development programs, spring, summer, we'll be advertising pretty soon. So please keep your eye out for that. Messages about that will go out in VBA all employee messages. Okay, just giving you a heads up. Yeah. All right, next slide, Jesse. Yeah, so, all right, we spent this last hour, you know your type now. We started doing a deep dive into your strengths, into what's challenging for you, what's kind of edgy for you. Then we started talking about how to spot these different styles out in our environments. That's social awareness, right? Now, what do you do with that? Self-management, relationship management. So here's what I would recommend. Next slide. So Jesse is going to share a handout with you right now. You can look at the PDF of these slides, which will be on our SharePoint site. If you want to move anything from short-term memory into long-term memory, you have to review it again at a later time. Please hang up somewhere where you can see that handout that has a very brief, easy description of each style. And then as you go about, you're in meetings or you're in a call or you see an email from somebody, just stop for a moment and put yourself in their shoes. What drives this person? What does this person really need from me to be at their best? How do I need to kind of flex my own style to be able to work with that person well? those questions, you'll get hints on how to answer those questions from the handout that we're sharing with you. So that's the next step. That's how you work on self-management and relationship management, is you take what you know about DISC and you don't do what you always do. You stop and know you have a choice. Now, given I know about myself, I know about that other person, what is the best way for me to collaborate with them? That's the next step. And I hope you take that next step. This is very useful information. I have loved seeing all of the comments in the chat today. Always such a pleasure to be with you all today. Here are our objectives, and so clearly from the activities we've done today, you met those objectives. So thank you all again for being here today. We will see you on June 20th with Tammy Crotto. She'll be talking about public speaking skills. So important. We so hope you can join us for that. Again, more information on our SharePoint site. Take care, everybody. You're very welcome, and we'll see you next time. Just a heads up, the QR code that you are seeing there on that screen will only work on government phones. Jesse is going to share the link to the evaluation in the chat box. Please do us a favor and take that evaluation. It's 5 questions, so easy, so quick, and it means the world to us. Thanks again, everybody.